Hey guys, this is Katrina with IdeateTV, and I'm here with Leo and Zach, who are composers for Cobra Kai on YouTube. I've never heard of this, so please tell me about this. Yeah, please educate
I'm
me.
happy to educate you.
Yeah.
So you've heard of the Karate Kid?
Yes.
Okay, so you know the Karate Kid. So this show is a show that takes place 35 years after Karate Kid in the Karate Kid universe with the same actors from the Karate Kid. So the Karate Kid and a lot of new ones. The Karate Kid is all grown up now, and him and his arch nemesis Johnny reignite their dojo rivalry 35 years later. There's some new students. There's a lot of new characters. It's very nuanced. It's a lot of fun. It's a really good mix of like comedy with action and a lot of drama.
World building from this existing universe that people. Turns out there are crazy Karate Kid fans that for the last 3 decades have been waiting for this to come out, and now we get a chance to bring it to life.
And season 2 is about to air at the end of April. Yeah. So it's a very fun show. Yeah.
So how has it been being like composers here? Like what kind of like sound and music that you guys have to use to kind of elevate this to our generation in a sense?
Yeah, it's a bit of taking ideas from the movie from the 80s, not like actually the same music, but that sound world, and then mixing it with like a much more contemporary like sound for this generation, and then finding ways to like cross-pollinate them.
Yeah. So we have a lot because there's a lot of new students.
Yeah.
It takes place, half of the show takes place in a high school.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to, use sounds, as Leo said, like that were inspired by some of the old Karate Kid, not just the score from the old Karate Kid, but the soundtrack, which has, a lot of like synth, 80s kind of pop records. So we took rock, we took EDM, we took synth pop, and we kind of meshed it together for the sound of the new students. And we've got our sound for Johnny, who is the bad guy in the original, and he's kind of a good guy now that we sympathize for.
Anti-hero.
And his sound is like hard rock, 80s hair metal, badass stuff. He thinks he's way more badass than he is.
What I'm trying to understand is there's so much kind of voices and music out there. How do you kind of pinpoint, and fit it towards a storyline?
It's a good question. I think it takes a lot of time to figure that out, and there's a lot of trial and error, and especially when you're starting out a show or a film or whatever, you've got to develop the sound of the characters, and how are we supposed to communicate the emotions and what's happening on screen and their story through music, and a lot of that is through tone and through orchestration, and it's not unusual to go through 5 to 10 different versions of something when you're starting out.
Yeah, especially at the very beginning of the process. I think the first couple things we wrote are highly revised. Although there's a lot of seeds from the version 1 in there, but just fine-tuning that, and especially to get kind of the palette right. And it's kind of the difference between when we did season 1 last year and did season 2, just finished on it, and like we spent so much time coming up with the initial ideas last time around, and this season was much more about, well, we know all our ideas and we know our sounds. What's like a new fun thing we can do with all this material? Find a way to like breathe more life into it, like paint it a different color, like turn it on its head. And that was fun.
Absolutely.
So like what is something like that new sound that you're putting in, like EDM? I love EDM. Yeah. So how do you kind of merge the 80s with EDM?
I think actually, and the DNA strand is actually very similar to go from 80s music to EDM, and you talk it like there are those, the 80s is when EDM like almost kind of got popular, and like you've got you got disco, and then you've got electronic disco, you got like all these bands experimenting with those types of sounds, and most of the EDM you hear today, their influences are from the 80s, like Kraftwerk, New Order, like all those things. So it was actually pretty intuitive for us. So it was this natural thing.
Evolution might not be the right word, but like kind of, I don't know.
Well, like
I'm trying to come up with like a cooking analogy. Like they're from the same cuisine. Like if you go back, I
like that. It's the base is the same.
Yeah, the first thing you put, the first couple ingredients you put in the pot are the same, and then whether it's from this country or this country, it like changes.
A good example is like the training montage, which is now a cliche in kind of like cinema or whatever. It was like almost originated with the Karate Kid. Like there were other, Rocky or whatever, but like Karate Kid is like where the 80s training montage started, and like that was a good jumping off point for us because there's montages in this show. So we were able to, take that kind of 80s heart, but then use like EDM sounds and like maybe the same tempo and the same types of like peaks and valleys, like your builds and your stuff like that.
And also do it in like a very genuine way, because like the 80s montage has become such a cliche that like I think we both joke that like everything we work on has an 80s montage, but this is the only show that has like a actual genuine, like this is an 80s montage as it would be in the 80s in terms of like emotion. We're just updating the sound a little bit. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really cool because it's just, the new generation. You want to mix the old with the new. Yeah. So how do you see Cobra Kai in the future with music? Like, what do you guys see in that?
It's hard to say because we have no idea what the next step of the story is. It's very zipped up, but...
or what would you like to see?
We are following the characters. Like our music tends to follow their emotional stages, and each season their emotional swings get like wider and wider. And like we talk about how like there's no good guys and bad guys. It's all this like shades of gray, and everyone's super interconnected. And so like for us, we just find ways to like use that interconnectedness as a launching point to give us a new idea of like of things we can combine and things we can change.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys so much. It seems really exciting. I can't wait to look at it when it comes out. Yeah.
Watch it.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys so much again. Thank you. Cheers. Katrina with IdeateTV.